if you're thinking about living in the digital nomad lifestyle, it's probably pretty attractive. The idea of saying, that's it, I'm leaving this country, I'm sick of these taxes. That's why you're probably on this YouTube channel. But there's some things that bite.
Yeah, so we do often come across people that have the plan to go and live overseas, maybe, or actually just pack up and bugger off and live on the road while they're retired. It's an interesting one. Like often the overseas comes, a lot of the clients I speak to could be, cost of living in Australia is way too high. It's going to be a lot cheaper for me to go and retire in Southeast Asian country. It's an interesting one, but it's probably not as simple as what I think a lot of people I speak to think. What do you reckon, Scott?
Well, look, let's just get straight into it. This was a podcast that we recorded yesterday and it was too waffly and we went all over the place. So today's the version 2 of this because I think I went on too much of a rant. So if you're watching this podcast, you're actually getting the benefit of yesterday, me and Phil doing this and then going, you know what, let's have another crack at this. The compressed version is, look, the idea of leaving overseas is incredibly alluring because let's say we go to Malaysia, let's say we go to Dubai or wherever else and, oh, wow, less taxes, it's going to be amazing. I live in Aussie, I pay so much tax. The reality is that there's probably 3 key issues that we see clients coming unstuck with pretty quickly. The first one is bureaucracy. You're dealing with the Australian superannuation system taxes, and now you're dealing with another version of another government's bureaucracy. So you've actually just doubled your bureaucratic layer. But at the same time, you are having to manage multi-jurisdiction layers. The second thing is healthcare costs. If you are in your prime retirement years, which we'll call 63 to 75, something like that, things are looking pretty good. You're probably drawing down your super, you're probably feeling pretty healthy, you're probably doing the travel. But usually if you are in any of those Southeast Asian countries or in the Emirates, wherever it is, you still need to pay independent health insurance. So you've actually got quite high healthcare costs baked in that instantly offset the tax benefits. And if you're in a superannuation pension phase, you're actually not paying any tax anyway. So what you're doing is you're actually almost worse off because you're in a foreign country where you're paying private health insurance. And the final point here, and this is just the entire 25-minute podcast compressed into 3 points, is the lifestyle creep that occurs. You might have a wedding you got to come back for, or a friend's funeral you got to come back for, and you got to bake those flights in. And you're also going to be wanting to keep up with the Joneses. You might be living in the villa, and staff might be really cheap, but you want to go travel. You want to keep going things, and you've got other friends and family around you, or other mates who are also digital nomads that are living the life. And all of a sudden, you're spending way more than you thought you would. So those are the 3 points. If you've clicked on this link, thank you so much. Those are the key elements. And I just wanted to basically compress and give you as much value as I could right at the front. Now,
I'll expand a bit on some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's Phil, go through it.
Look, if you are considering, particularly retiring overseas or something like that, there's a bit of maybe like a decision filter you should apply. Sit down and just ask yourself sort of these 5 questions and see how it aligns with you. So, first one would be, do I like uncertainty and admin? There is a level of uncertainty going to live in an unfamiliar country, unfamiliar laws, new bureaucracy, as Scott keeps mentioning. And there's going to be admin. You're going to be doing paperwork, visas, bloody God knows what, depending on where you live. Second question would be, how often do I realistically think I'm going to be coming back to Australia? Have you still got family, grandkids, whatever that you're going to want to visit, and how often is that going to happen? You need to factor that into the budget. 3, what's the healthcare plan and what's plan B? So, if something goes wrong in another country, it is going to cost you more money. You may have to get home in a hurry, but if it's an emergency or something, you got to be medevaced or whatever, that's going to cost you a bomb. You're not going to have your pensioners concession card. So think about it. Think about it carefully and plan for it, because, the reality is, if you are considering retiring in another country, you are older and you are likely to experience more healthcare costs, even in your own country, let alone somewhere else. 4, have I cooked up this budget based off, what I spent on holidays once in 1989? Or is this actually realistic, what I'm going to be spending in the real world living in another country? And the last one, what happens if the exchange rates really move?
So what this is saying here is that if we look at what the exchange rates look like today, €1 is buying $1 and 17 cents. Before they were about parity, but what you've seen here is you've seen this real movement away from the value of the US dollar. So what this means is the US has lost like about 17% of its purchasing power against the euro.
Mm.
That's a huge difference. You know, if I've just got a budget and I have got expenses and all of a sudden they've moved by 17% against me, that's something to certainly factor in. So, especially like let's just grab, I don't know, let's just similar things. So the euro, so the dong's lost its purchasing power. I mean, we could probably, with the ringgit. So that's kind of stable, sort of flat. So the ringgit to euro has been kind of flat. So that's not had a huge difference. Rupiah's lost a lot. So the Indonesian rupiah is really down versus the euro. So this is just an example of the rupiah, and this is just a movement. So you know, €1 was back in the day getting 17,000 rupiah, but now it gets closer to 20,000. That's huge. You got to factor that in. Yeah, 100%. So you got to factor that one in as well. So just a couple of points to also consider.
Yeah, it is. It's introducing another layer of risk to your retirement portfolio. You know, we all think about the obvious thing of market risk and all what happens if you have a crash, but you're also introducing that currency risk, which you have in your super anyway, but it's a bit more real when you're actually spending foreign dollars. So definitely something else to think about. You've talked a fair bit about tax, and yeah, that does come up. A lot of the people I speak to, you know, they're looking at that as an option because cost of living is low, and maybe they haven't bought a house, so they're renting and it's cheaper rent. You know, cheaper food costs, all that sort of gear is quite often the thing. But often where I find people might get it wrong is that, you know, when they think about the budget of what they're going to spend week to week in, you know, Philippines, Vietnam, wherever, Thailand, you know, they're thinking about it through the context of I went there for a 4-week holiday and my food cost was next to nothing. But the realities of going for a holiday and and actually funding living expenses are going to be pretty different. Like you mentioned, like healthcare costs are definitely something that could get pretty significant. Like, you know, you might, if it's just something pretty simple, well, sure, you could fly home and sort it out under Australia's very generous healthcare system. But what if it's not? What if it's something like some sort of emergency that lands you in hospital and stuck there for a while? That is going to run you a massive bill. So things like that can be pretty frightening. You know, maybe you have to do visa runs. Maybe the country you're in, you can't stay in for longer than X amount of time and you got to do a visa run here or there. So you got flight costs. Like Scott mentioned, lifestyle creep, flying back and forward. And then think about things like age pension as well. Like you've got some considerations there.
What's the considerations, Phil? So what's the numbers? If I go and move myself to Bali, become a digital nomad, and let's say I'm also eligible, so that means I'm over the age of 67 and my assets are below the threshold.
Yeah, so you get the age pension, and look, the main thing is, like, if you leave for 6 weeks, cool, that's a holiday, no issues, off you go. But you stay for over 6 weeks, and you're going to start to see some impacts. So you'll probably, you know, you'll lose your energy supplement, which forms part of your age pension. Your pension supplement may drop, and you're going to lose your pension concessioner card, which is, you know, often the thing that most people are excited to get when they go on the pension. So that's something to think about. And then if it's a more permanent move, like if you're gone for more than 26 weeks, potentially your age pension is going to reduce as well, because it's based on how long you've been an Australian resident at that point. So if you've been an Australian resident for more than 35 years, cool, your pension will continue. You'll just lose your supplements and your healthcare card, or concession card, you know, fine, whatever. But if you've been here less than 35 years, then you're going to lose some of your age pension, you know. So for example, you'll get sort of 1/35th of your age pension for every year you're an Australian resident. So you know, 10 years, you'll get 10/35ths of whatever rate you're on.
That's interesting.
It's something to think about because that's quite often the case too. When I say this, people maybe people that have immigrated to Australia, worked here for all their life, you know, be eligible for a pension, but maybe they haven't been residents for 35 years and they want to return home.
What happens if I go overseas for 8 weeks?
Yeah, well, 8 weeks, you're going to lose your supplements and you're going to lose your concession card. You know, not to say that's a reason not to do things, but it's certainly something you need to be aware of when you're considering your costs. Yeah, so that's probably the big ones I see catch people out. That and healthcare costs is a huge one.
I think. I agree. And I look, I'll touch on. I can touch on the lifestyle creep. Just moving through that. So I used to live in Abu Dhabi, and I was financial planning over there to Australians, and a lot of my clients, maybe if you're listening to this, you're one of them, moved to the Emirates to basically get a lower tax environment, as well as potentially job opportunities as well. More billionaires have moved to the Emirates than anywhere else at the moment. But the problem that I saw was lifestyle creep. and all of a sudden you're surrounded with other versions of yourself, but everything's more shiny, everything that's more hot and fast paced. And because you don't feel like you're at home anymore. Yes, you're in a different residency, but I as an advisor, seeing like quite a lot of clients, saw that just the lifestyle expenses explode. A lot more holidaying, a lot more fancy restaurants. You think you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be so much cheaper when I go overseas, but actually you're actually just trying to keep up with Joneses from like Switzerland or from New Zealand, and they're actually maybe a couple of steps ahead of you financially. And yeah, look, I saw it. It's a definite thing. And it's like, honestly though, it's actually pretty exciting as well. So I don't want to say like the guy that's like, no, you shouldn't do it. It was really fun.
Yeah.
But it was just really expensive for them to be doing that.
Yeah. Look, it is interesting. I know, come across some people who've been living in Bali and doing the digital nomad thing over there. And what I've taken away from some of those conversations is actually they're just surrounded by other Westerners doing the same thing, and they're kind of paying Western prices because everything's priced accordingly.
Coffee's the same. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I haven't really seen any cheaper. So anyway, look, that's not to say don't go and live overseas in retirement. If that's something you want to do, by all means, go for it. But like we say with everything, there's not necessarily any wrong. Well, maybe there are some wrong decisions in retirement planning, but do whatever the hell you want as long as you're doing it with your eyes open and you understand the consequences of the decisions you're making. And if you can live with those consequences and you're happy to do it, then go and reckon. Yeah. What about hitting the road in Australia and just packing up and buggering off semi-permanently? What do you reckon about that?
So I think we actually touched on this yesterday, which was do it with a couple of basic building blocks. First of all, look to your spouse to your left, look to your spouse to your right and go, do I really want to spend the next 2 years traveling Australia with you? That would be the first thing. That's the first non-financial planner, but holy shit, that's a tip. We actually looked at our client base in preparation for this call, and we haven't had a single grain nomad couple downsize, caravan off, get divorced, which is kind of interesting. Not one in the entire history of our business.
It is interesting. I think I gave you my thoughts yesterday, but I think that, but by the time you've gotten to that point in your life, like you're through the pressure cooker moments, you're through the, needing a dual income household just to bloody keep a roof over your head these days because stuff's expensive. You've raised the young kids, you've paid off the mortgage, you've done the hard yards. And I think if there's a couple you've survived all of that, you're probably all right. You're probably all right when you hit the road. It seems to be that sort of younger people in the pressure cooker years that kind of have the dust up.
So Phil, where do your clients go wrong? Where do they, downsize? What are their issues?
Yeah, I don't know if this necessarily go wrong. Under budgeting is probably a common one. Everyone thinks of caravanning as being a cheap way to go and travel, and yeah, it used to be, but it's kind of getting a lot more expensive.
As a non-caravaner, what should I like? What's the ask for numbers, and how do the ask for numbers relate to caravanning?
Yeah, well, I think current ask for numbers, I think I just saw the updated ones about 76,000 a year for a comfortable retirement for a couple. I haven't looked through the line by line budget as yet, but the last one I looked through was March quarter, which was at 73,000 a year, and in that was about $4,500 a year in travel expenses.
It's too low.
No, it seems too low, yeah, because you think, particularly if you're towing a big van around, you're burning more fuel than what you are when you're just driving around home. A lot of caravan parks are getting dynamic pricing now. So, you're going to hit times when you're on the road and school holidays and whatever else. You're going to be paying. Yeah, it's starting to become more common. Oh. Yeah, you might hit a place that's $50 a night. In the middle of school holidays, it's $150 a night. It's getting a lot more expensive. And, I'll have a whinge, but there's a lot of property developers just bulldozing caravan parks to whack up luxury apartments. And the great Australian caravan park holiday by the beach is starting to become a little rarer and thus more expensive. So it's possibly going to cost you more than you expect.
So first of all, tips are check, spouse, make sure we're good. Under budgeting, make sure that we've got sufficient cash flow. What about
plan your trips so you're out of high popularity destinations during school holidays?
But if we're doing it,
you don't need to be there at school holidays. Go when it's cheaper.
Yeah. What about downsizing to the 3-bedroom, 3-story townhouse from the family home?
Yeah, look, we see that a bit. Either people will keep their family home, maybe rent it out while they go and travel, or maybe they'll do the downsize before they go and those sort of things. Look, a big consideration, and one thing I have seen people get wrong pretty regularly actually is sell the family home to downsize find a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment somewhere, go and buy that, but it's up 4 flights of stairs, and that's fine when you're 60, but maybe not great when you're 86. So that happens a bit. And when you're doing that downsize, particularly if you're doing it early in retirement, you really need to think about, is this the house I want to be living in 15 years' time, not right now? Because like that, carrying bags of groceries up 4 flights of stairs when you're in your 80s is not going to be your idea of a good time. So think about that, because every time you've got to buy and sell a house, you're just making a donation to a real estate agent and the state government. You're just paying more stamp duty. It's expensive to change houses, so don't do it more than you have to.
I'm going to throw one on top of that as well, as around if so what I like to see with my clients is we basically do a filter. So let's say the family house, we're downsizing to a 3-bedroom unit, flat, whatever it is, single story. So there's no stairs, ideally accessible car park. And the layer on top of that is a high quality hospital. There's lots of hospitals in regional towns that are excellent. Towns with 20, 40,000 people all across the country, they've got some excellent hospitals. You want to be within a reasonable basis so you can access, if you need to go to the physio, if you've got dentists, if you've got, that they'll cluster together. And it should be a genuine consideration for you if you're 65 and you're looking at downsizing and then doing either the grey nomad or the digital nomad lifestyle.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And I'll just add to that too, another mistake I've seen happen a couple of times. One particularly really bad case that sticks to mind, but maybe you found the great 3-bedroom unit. It is up some stairs, but the complex has got a lift. Sweet, it's got a lift, no worries. Look, fine. Make sure you get financials for the sinking fund and check out the body corporate really, really closely. I had a couple that we had to withdraw 100.
What's the sinking fund? Tell me. How does the sinking fund work? What is it?
Yeah. So, you got your body corporate, you're paying fees, and a chunk of that money should be going into what they call a sinking fund, which is for repairs to the building. Okay. Make it split between all the unit owners. And I have seen lifts die in small, maybe only 6 apartments or something like that. And those costs are shared between 6 unit owners then. And I've seen people buy relatively freshly into an apartment block, have the lift go kaput. They hadn't checked the sinking fund. There was no money in it because the body corporate hadn't managed it very well. And they were up for 130 grand not long after moving in for their share of lift repairs.
And can they get out of it? Is there anything they can do about it?
No, that was it. Otherwise you've got to find someone else that's willing to buy the place and take that on. So, I'm not saying don't buy places with lifts. I'm just saying, it is important to ask for financials for a sinking fund when you're buying a unit block somewhere and check it out. Actually, make sure the money's been looked after and there is some money there. Something else just to put on the radar.
Yeah, I'm just going to come back to the ASFA numbers because we literally they were just announced, so it's kind of interesting going through them. It's basically 600,000 if you're a single, and that also assumes that you have your house paid off as well, and you've paid your house off. You got $600,000 of super. You also are on the age pension at that point. The weird thing about the ASFA figures is you're not a full self-funded retiree. You are still dealing with Centrelink, and I've spoken to a few of my clients and they're like, well, but Centrelink's always going to be there.
That's probably a topic for another time.
Right.
But yeah, I expect it'll be there, but how you access it there might be some changes there at some point.
I definitely think they're going to push it to age 70 at some stage. It's just not sustainable.
On that topic of family home and age pension, something else to be aware of, because maybe you don't want to go and rent your home out, or maybe you've just downsized, you bought your dream home and you don't want to rent it to someone, or you go on the road or whatever. Something to be aware of that a lot of people don't know is, if you sell your family home, you've actually got 2 years to find another one, and that money can sit in your bank account before Centrelink is going to assess that money as an asset. And it's something I hear commonly, I don't want to sell my house and go and travel because now I'm going to have 800 grand sitting in the bank. I'm going to lose my pension. You won't. You've got 2 years. So, maybe for some people that's the perfect sort of way to run it. Sell your place, go travel for a couple of years, and then come back and buy something when you get back. Or, if you are going to go and travel and rent it out, just bear in mind you've got 6 years before you're potentially creating a capital gains tax problem for yourself when you do sell and downsize later. Just a couple of things to be aware of.
Yeah. So I think let's just like touch on those points of what we've just gone over, which is like, are we saying don't sell stuff and move overseas? No, we're not saying that. But just note, you will reduce your benefits, obviously. You will be dealing with 2 levels of bureaucracy. Lifestyle creep is a thing. Yes, taxes are definitely, if you go, depends where you stay, depends where you are. there will be a tax difference. But you, in theory, if you're in retirement and you're drawing a pension, that account is like tax-free anyway. So it's like, you've worked hard, you've built up a great asset. The government allows you to have no tax on those earnings. Factor those in. I think it shouldn't be done for potentially money. I think it should be done for, this is an exciting adventure.
Yeah, I agree. If it's something you really want to do and the financials stack up to a level that you're comfortable with, then go nuts.
Hell yeah, you're only going to live once. Let's get after it. But what about, Phil, let's just touch on the hybrid one. So this is the one thing, which is hybrid, which is the downsell, rent the property out, live. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, mate, I think it's great. And like, I'll use my parents as an example. They left work, told me they were going to go and hit the road for 6 months, and I didn't see them for 12 years, which is awesome. They actually, retired, well, didn't retire because they couldn't, but they stopped work earlier than probably what they could have, and then traveled and worked. And they worked in some amazing places, did some amazing stuff, and got to travel where you do it. And we see that happen a bit. If you've got any kind of transferable skills or any kind of in-demand skills, I've got clients that are nurses that are traveling around picking up surge contracts where they get paid crazy good money to go and do nursing stints in remote areas. So it's a great way to travel and earn. Teachers, relief teaching's another one. They always need teachers in random spots. If you're relatively handy, there's plenty of handyman work around. I met someone in a caravan park the other day that traveled around and did auto sparky work in vans, and that covered a lot of their travel. So, there's stuff you can do, and I think it's an awesome way to do it. Pick up bits and pieces where you are, or maybe work for a few months somewhere in there and move on. I foresee myself at some point in the future still having some clients and advising them from the road. There's no reason why I can't. It's all done from a laptop. So, great way to go. Yeah.
So the way that I like to do it at a functional level is I like to say base living costs, which is the boring stuff. Let's just figure out it doesn't matter where you're living. You're in Thailand, you're in Malaysia, you're in, Bundaberg. We've got base living costs. This is what me and my spouse or me and myself need to, this is like fuel in the car, base insurances on everything we own. That's the amount we need per month. Done. One on top of that is the fun stuff. We're going to be taking that tour. We're going to be going to that place. We don't want to be going to the cheap places. If we're traveling to this area, I want to be able to do the rope course, or I want to do the flower show. I want to be able, whatever it is, right? It was somewhere in Europe. I actually went to the flower show in the UK. It was the UK. It was they had the biggest flower show on the planet every year. It's a big deal. In post-production, we'll put it here, whatever it's called, the flower show. Right. So you're going to have the base stuff, then you're going to have the travel, and we're going to have buffer account. All right. Bad stuff. Okay. So we're going to just make sure that we've got, if the car gets broken down, if I break an arm, if the kids get sick and I need to go back and see them right now, we need that buffer account set up, and that should be whatever you feel it is. I would say 5, 6, 7 grand. What do you reckon for the buffer bad day account?
I usually tell most people 20, but if I'm in a third world country, I probably want more like 50.
Really?
Well, you think, imagine what it costs you if you bloody laid up in hospital for, a month in Vietnam. It's going to cost you a fortune.
Mm.
If you can't get home now, if you have your Medifact, well, bloody, really strap in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to think about these things. It can happen.
So for my, we'll call it the bad day buffer account, I like to see that in a different bank than your normal day-to-day accounts. I don't know what you say, Phil, but I like that to be in if you've got an ING saver account, put it in a completely different random bank, just so you don't look at it every day. It's still accessible. It's just a little diversification as well. For example, if your bank account gets locked for whatever reason, and we've definitely had clients where, something's happened and the bank just completely locks them out, and then they're overseas and now they can't access their phone.
Yeah.
Having money in a second bank is super, super valuable.
When I was a young fella just starting out in my career at CBA, we used to get calls all the time from people overseas where they hadn't told the bank they were going and their bank accounts got locked. And it took time to fix.
Yeah.
People stuck overseas with no money.
Yeah, it's no good. No good, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to time zones aren't friendly. Lifestyle, like we've touched on before, over budget, don't under budget, and have fun. Don't feel bad about it. Do the math, do this 3-point here, and then get after it. That's what I'm saying to people. You reckon a higher buffer account than me, but makes sense.
Yeah, I'm paranoid. Mate, I've seen what it costs to fix 4-wheel drives.
You could spot the 4-wheel drive out of the two of us. All right, Phil, wrap it up.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, I think you already summed it up pretty well. If you know what you want to do, you've budgeted it out, you're happy with the consequences, go nuts and have a bloody good time. But just, no right or wrong, just make the decisions with your eyes open. And if you're not sure, talk to us.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We see you. We see the comments. Please, we need you to subscribe. We're trying to get this channel to over 10,000 subscribers. We're close to 6,000 right now. When we hit 10,000, we're going to be doing something very special. We want you to be a part of it. Coming to Christmas, hopefully you guys are having a wonderful, safe Christmas. Our next pod will be released around Christmas Day, so keep an eye out for that one. And Phil, anything else you want to say before we sign up?
The Christmas present you never asked for.
Two guys talking money. What? Yeah, sounds exciting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Cheers.